Joining us now for War Brief and the review of some of the headlines of today's newspapers from around the world is Adefemi Akinsanya. Good morning, Adefemi.
Good morning, Dr. Ruben. Welcome back. Good morning, Bimbai.
Adefemi.
And good morning, Rufai. Oh, look at the two of you matching in pink. It's very nice.
Oh,
look at that. Brother and sister indeed.
Femi Femu.
That's me.
Mommy,
She's
mommy.
fine. Thank you so
Good.
much. She's great. Well, let me tell you what's happening around the world. Now, UK Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer, alongside French President Emmanuel Macron, have agreed on tougher immigration controls to address the record-breaking 210,000 migrants who have crossed the English Channel between both countries so far this year. Now, at a press conference, the two leaders disclosed their one-in, one-out return scheme, which would see Britain deporting deporting undocumented people arriving in small boats in return for accepting an equal number of legitimate asylum seekers with British family connections. Let's take a listen.
For the very first time, migrants arriving via small boat will be detained and returned to France in short order. In exchange for every return, a different individual will be allowed to come here via a safe route, controlled and legal, subject to strict security checks, and only open to those who have not tried to enter the UK illegally.
Well, the announcement brings to an end Emmanuel Macron's three-day state visit to the United Kingdom and gives Starmer's popularity a much-needed boost as he works to address the number of asylum seekers arriving in the UK via boats and curb the rise of the populist Reform Party. Now, Macron also did criticise the United Kingdom's decision to leave the European Union, saying that it had worsened the migrants' crisis. Now, before the end of the day, both leaders co-chaired a video conference meeting of the Coalition of the Willing to address support for Ukraine. Bangladesh's former Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has been indicted in absentia along with two of her close aides for crimes against humanity committed during the July uprising last year, which led to her ousting. Now, Bangladesh's International Crimes Tribunal ordered charges against the exiled 77-year-old leader. Of course, that's Hasina, but also the former Home Minister Assad Uzzaman Khan Kamal and the former Inspector General of Police Chowdhury Abdullah Al-Muman. Hasina, though, she is accused of ordering state forces to carry out actions that led to the killings and injuries during that uprising when more than 1,400 people were killed in the unrest between July and August of 2024. Now, at least 10 children and 6 adults were killed in Gaza when an Israeli strike hit Palestinians near a medical clinic in Gaza. Now, verified video footage from the strike in Deir al-Balah in the central Gaza Strip showed the bodies of women and children lying in pools of blood amid dust and screaming. Another clip showed several motionless children lying on a donkey cart. Now, Israel says the strike targeted a Hamas member who participated in the October 7th, 2023 attack. But as the footage shows, civilian women and especially children were the vast majority of the dead. Now, the missile strike came as Israel and Hamas negotiators held talks with mediators in Qatar over a proposed 60-day ceasefire and hostage release deal aimed at building agreement on a lasting truce. Well, we also did actually have the story. I know you've already discussed the story of the foreign minister, Yusuf Tugar, shedding a bit more light, talking about how the United States have been putting pressure on Nigeria to accept people from Venezuela. It's almost a mirror of what we're seeing with America deporting those nationals from all over the world, South America, one South Sudanese, and they actually arrived in South Sudan earlier this month. So we're seeing a bit more light being shed on that. Those are your stories. Love to hear your thoughts before we move on to papers.
Femi, like I said, we're a sovereign country. America should not pass the Venezuelans they're deporting from their country down there. All right, down to us here. We're not going to take that. We're a sovereign country. They should leave us out of their shenanigans that they're doing. It's as simple as that. They are breaking every laws in the book. Now they want to build something they call the Alligator Alcatraz, right there in Florida, just dehumanizing people, doing all sorts with ICE. Trump has gotten what he wanted. He's put up over 170 billion in budget just for ICE. I'm not saying you can't have a legal migrant issue. Sort it out yourself. Don't call other nations into your problems. As regards Israel, yes, they have continued. The painful thing about this bombing Hyundai al-Aba is the fact that this was the place they told Palestinians to move to be safe. But they are bombing it. And you see, for those that make the arguments and say, oh, Hamas must go down. Yes, Hamas must go down. What Hamas did on October 7 was totally very terrible and unforgivable. But what about the killings, Femi? What about the killings in the West Bank? Did anybody from West Bank do anything to Israel on October 7? What about the killing of the Palestinians in West Bank? Now, you are trying to push all of them to certain areas. You're trying to take over the area because you're fighting Hamas. You're killing innocent people. You claim over 1,000 people were killed on October 7, which we totally abhor. But you have killed over 54,000 and counting.
Since then.
And you are still killing.
Civilians. Yes.
And let's even review October 7. With the ample intelligence Israel had, we all know they dropped the ball. We all know something went wrong. A day will still come, we'll talk about how the Israelis also dropped the ball. Because that stretch is one of the most guarded stretch you can ever think of. Yeah. We know the camera, we know. You see, Israeli security companies, it is on that Gaza border they used to test all their new technology and equipment. Most of Palestinian citizens are doxxed, their phones are tapped. Pegasus is put into the air. They know what they're doing. But we'll tell the story some other day. And as regards to the UK and illegal migrants and all of that going on, the truth is, yes, you must find a problem, but you must also have a human face. You see, because when we look at all of this, the problem is not about migrants. The problem is the fact that we have challenges with resource on ground to be able to cater to them.
Yes.
The problem is, how do you document them effectively? The truth is, and the quality they are bringing to bear. Canada looks for migration every year, yes, but they want quality people with skills and all of that. When the UK needed the Jamaicans to come do their job, they got them aboard the ship Windrush.
Yes.
And they brought them to the UK. So how they tackle it is and we'll see it in the coming days.
We'll see. Thank you.
Right, to Bangladesh, which is unfolding almost a year to, it's almost the 1 year anniversary of the ousting of Hasina herself, and the young people standing up and revolutionizing their movement and their call. I was reading an article about how, they used everything from rap music to graffiti to memes to make sure that the movement kept going, and it was almost an echo of what we're seeing in Kenya, especially because just recently there was an audio recording that was also released, yes, of Hasina, or allegedly of Hasina, giving the state security the, yeah, power and the authority to shoot at protesters, to shoot live ammunition at protesters. Of course, we know that several people died during the lead up to her ouster and even under her rule in general. And, because Rufai mentioned Kenya earlier, just reminded me of the fact that, we currently have presidents and administrations here on the African continent, right, who are doing the exact same thing. And you ask yourself, why are we so terrified of protesters? After the initial memorial protest that had taken place in Kenya, William Ruto had said that, oh, what are you protesting for? You want to remove me? Try something better. He was very cheeky. But suddenly that try something better has degenerated to him saying that, protesters should be dealt with the highest level of brutality possible. And it's just so unfortunate because as the developing world, the global south, we ask ourselves, when will we be able to protect the right of citizens to protest without the allegations of hijacking and also without the conspiracy of hijacking? Because sometimes, right, you do see, like with the Sabah protest that took place in Kenya, you do see that there's looting, there's so many things that happen. Even in South Africa in 2021, when there were the Durban protests, you saw that those protests were hijacked and it turned into a looting spree. Yes. So I think just big conversations need to be had about, yes, as much as there are these crimes against humanity that are perpetrated by these heavy-handed leaders, the question is also, what is the framework that we're putting in to protect our people? Yes, right, we've gone after Hasina now, but there's still a spirit of revolution largely in Bangladesh because they're struggling to contain the newfound power that these young revolutionaries have. How are we going to implement implement the rule of law in the global south when these types of instances happen, when dictators are removed and when authoritarian regimes are removed? For me, it's a big conversation.
Thank you, Bimbai.
What is the timeline in Bangladesh? In July last year, students rioted over the issue of job quota. At the end of the day, 1,000 persons were killed, 20,000 were injured. And that led to such a big crisis that Sheikh Hasina had to resign and leave. And she went to India. And then an interim government led by Professor Mohammed Yunus, the Nobel laureate, icon, came into place. And then they set up what they call the International Crime Tribunal sitting in Dhaka. And that International Crime Tribunal, only about a week ago, sentenced Sheikh Hasina to 6 months imprisonment, saying that she had a hand, in fact, her offenses, crime against humanity, murder, and incitement. They say they have a video which shows that she gave direct instruction. But the big story is about the relationship on the matter between India and Bangladesh. Bangladesh is asking that Hasina should be extradited. They have an extradition treaty between them in 2013, revised in 2016, focusing on terrorism, insurgency along their borders. But there are clauses. There's the dual criminality clause. There's also the fact that there must be fairness and justice. So the question there is, will India extradite Sheikh Hasina? I do not think, they will, because India is asking that they must provide proof that, Sheikh Hasina was directly involved. Even if that proof is given, India is the one that is now at the crossroads, not to offend Bangladesh, and at the same time not to offend political forces, both in Bangladesh and in India. As for Gaza, the issue here is a subject of international law. What you'll find there is a violation of international humanitarian law, which says that individuals who are not involved in combat, they deserve to be protected. Last week, you brought the story about the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. The NGOs saying, look, the guards were shooting people indiscriminately. What has happened now simply confirms the story that you brought last week. And it's unfortunate because Hamas has now agreed to release 10 hostages. And there is some hope that a ceasefire will come about. But Israel has been unrelenting in bombarding the Gaza Strip. In the last 24 hours, over 82 persons have been killed, either in Khan Yunis or other parts of Hamas. Now I summarize quickly about the migration plan, one in, one out. It's called a decluttering policy. Issues that are raised there. One, the right of the refugees, people seeking asylum. There is what is called the EU Refugee Convention. It was because of the violation of the EU Refugee Convention that the Rwanda asylum program didn't go through. Courts ruled against it. But in this particular case, it doesn't look like there is a plan to impose on people. Two, it's still at an experimental stage, so it doesn't mean that it will work. Three, where there is a legal issue with regard to the convention, if the UK sends back one person, what is the guarantee that those people will not be maltreated when they get back to France? So those are the strands of the story.
Well, thank you all for your great submissions. Let's move on to papers. Let's take a look at the front page of This Day. This Day, this morning, does lead with, well, it's not so much lead, but it does have the clarification from the federal government, which insists that Nigeria never stop the issuance of the 5-year non-immigrant visas to the United States. As we discussed during the World Brief, well, as has been discussed throughout the show, really, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tugar, has shed some more light on the reasons for this update, as he says that he has rejected U.S. pressure to accept Venezuelan deportees. Now, Friday's headline is Nigerian Vice President Kashim Shettima disclosing how former President Goodluck Jonathan attempted to remove him as governor of Borno State during his tenure. Kashim Shettima was the governor of Borno State between May 2011 to May 2019. He was re-elected in 2015, and Shettima also says that the former Speaker of the House of Representatives, Aminu Tambuwal, told Jonathan that he had no power to remove elected governors. Now, the Daily Independent leads with President Tinubu, along with Southern governors and FCT Minister Nyesom Wike, welcoming the Supreme Court verdict confirming Monday Okpebolo as the rightful winner of the Edo State gubernatorial elections held last September. Aswe Ugodalo, who he ran against, says the verdict confirms really a betrayal, insisting that this is not justice, while Godwin Obaseki calls the update a danger to Nigeria's democracy. Both the Daily Trust and the Punch lead with local government funding. It's been a year since the Supreme Court granted full autonomy to the 774 local government areas, but the federal government has continued to channel allocations through state governments. State governors retain control of council allocations totaling 4.5 trillion naira, and that's defying this landmark judgment that mandated direct funding to local governments, which, according to these reports, have not opened accounts with the central bank. The New Telegraph this morning dedicates its headline to the president of the Nigerian Medical Association, Bala Audu, again calling on the federal government to withdraw the National Salaries, Incomes and Wages Commission circular on the review of allowances for medical and dental officers in the federal public service. He says that it was issued without consultation and should be withdrawn. And that's as the NMA's 21-day ultimatum, which was issued on the 2nd of July, is approaching its deadline, and it threatens a total shutdown if the doctors' demands are not met. Meanwhile, on the front of The Guardian, there's an emerging boom in home services for the elderly, which, as the paper reports, is a costly substitute for families due to the ailing hospitals that they do have access to. Those are your papers.
All right. Real quickly, Femi, one story that really comes to mind I would like to talk about is, that of one visa debacle, and secondly, the story about what Shettima said.
Sure.
You see, the truth has to be said, and we must repeat this as many times as possible. That any time that a president commits an aberration, let's say it the way it is, not for the interest of today, but for the interest of the future. What President Tinubu has done in Rivers is wrong. There are no two ways about it, especially owing to the fact that it was to settle a political score. I didn't say that. Wike came on television to say that. He said it during an interview that it was impeachment he was going for. It was President Tinubu that saved Fubara by bringing forward that idea of a state of emergency. We cannot use laws of the land at critical times for political reasons. It makes a mockery of our system and our constitution. And that's why this morning I asked the question, where was the council? Because the line of thought of the government when the state of emergency happened was, maybe if it's in favor of Fubara, is it not better than impeachment? That was their talking points. A lot of them from government called me and shared that talking points. But the question is, where was the Attorney General to stand tall like a donkey? And that's why, in as much as I berated Goodluck Jonathan at first, but I also respect him for listening to wise counsel. On 2 occasions, I've had to ask Dr. Abati, you served in that government, that did this happen? He said yes. Another case in point was during the subsidy protest, where I asked her, was there at any time that people advised Goodluck Jonathan, use police and military to disperse all these protesters for taking over the country and adjust in 12 days? He said yes, but Goodluck Jonathan listened to wise counsel and he didn't do it. And that's what they call a leader. And that's why he keeps earning his respect. In this regard, was there no person that can tell President Tinubu that there was no point dabbling into their matter and now using an instrument of state and constitutionality to solve an aberration where you now made a faux pas on top of it? That's the pain and the grouse for a lot of Nigerians this morning. And we need to talk about these things because for everything you do, you set a precedent. Now that President Tinubu has set a precedent, any other president can come tomorrow and see two fighting in a state and say, let's use state of emergency. So state of emergency has now become a joke.
We hope not. We hope not.
That's what it has become in Nigeria. And that's why we want to wait for the Supreme Court. And we please urge the Supreme Court to look at that case. We must save this country.
Thank you, Rufai. Go ahead, Bimbai.
What country are we living in?
Absolutely. I think that there's the two situations certainly rhyme. It's difficult to separate them.
The two.
Yeah, but I understand the Dr. Abati has sort of given us the semantic approach to the constitutional, the wording and the phrasing around it. Yes, and but the concerns are around
suspension is temporary removal.
So. But for me, my concerns are around due process. So whether it's a suspension, whether it's a removal, or whatever it is, what is the due process? And the consensus is that the due process in Sim Fubara's case was not clean and clear. It was not clean cut. And it's unfortunate because in those instances, many people would have thought that the National Assembly, he spoke of Aminu Tambuwal from the House of Reps. Many would have thought that the National Assembly in this case at least would have spoken for, if the AGF couldn't have spoken for the governor, at least the National Assembly could have chimed in and said, because he said the matter also went to FEC. Yes. So in this instance, you see that, it went through the entire process and nobody was able to challenge it. It's only commentators who are from the outside who are able to speak up, vocalize it, and challenge it. So yes, the situations may not be identical. They may not have repeated themselves, but they certainly rhymed.
Thank you, Bimbai.
Okay, let me return to this Section 305 matter. I was saying that when the Vice President, Senator Shettima, spoke yesterday, he wasn't criticizing his boss. And I have expressed the opinion that those who are trying to say he was criticizing his boss, President Tinubu, they are putting their own mischievous interpretation on it. They may say they are entitled to do so, but the misinterpretations that I've seen is within the context of what happened, I think, in Yobe, when, the National Vice Chairman of the party was said not to have mentioned the Vice President's name in connection with 2027. Yes. And since then, people have been going, looking for any little thing to say, oh, two fighting in the villa. Yes. And I would like to say, look, we've gone through this before. Under President Obasanjo, the second term of President Obasanjo was devoted to what I called a Bolekaja presidency, because the president's wing was fighting the vice president's wing. And I think that the professional mischief makers in Nigeria should desist from, causing friction where it does not exist. And hence I made the point that the word that I heard him using yesterday was talking about the context of his own experience, that, okay, there was a plan to remove him, but the law prevailed. Right. The logical question is, what is the situation in Rivers? Now, Section 305 talks about war or imminent threat of war. And people are saying the context is different. There is no imminent threat of war in Rivers. That's why people have been saying, look, what the president has done, he has violated that same constitution. Because if there is war, that's when you can even talk about suspension for 6 months. Yes. But for you as a president to just decide on the basis of your own interpretation to just remove democratically elected persons, that is what is wrong. I think that is very clear enough. The third point is that people cite the example of Dariye, again about context. In 2004, then Governor Joshua Dariye in Plateau State was removed by President Obasanjo. And the issue was, look, the president has no powers to remove anybody. The Plateau State House of Assembly approached the Supreme Court of Nigeria. Now, their lordships at that time declined jurisdiction. They never looked into the substance of the case. So I think the basic point is about, respecting the rule of law.
Agreed.
And for attorneys general to offer good advice. But where they offer the advice and the principal does not take the advice, you may have this kind of situation.
Here we go.
Where everybody becomes an emergency constitutional lawyer and everybody is interpreting. And the line between politics and governance and constitutionalism,
becomes blurred. Thank you so much. Thank you all.